Hello, Sumant. Welcome to Funnel Story podcast. I am very excited to have you on the show. I would love to start by having you introduce yourself. We would love to know about your travels, most important thing. But we also want to know how you started in the field of customer success, sales engineering, and where you started your career from and how you reached at this point.
Great. Thanks, Alok and Funnel Story, for inviting me. Yeah, I've spent my career in customer-facing roles in pre-sales and post-sales right throughout. And interestingly, I started off as a technical software engineer. So I spent 5 years writing code at Digital, way back in Boston. And then I realized that I enjoyed a lot more talking to customers. So I moved from Digital to what was then Anderson Consulting and became Accenture, and spent 5 years as a consultant. And I really enjoyed that, being at that intersection of sales, technology, and customer, and being able to really understand the perception of the customer, the reality and problems they're trying to solve. And that's kind of where my passion came for sales engineering. So from there, I moved actually to EMC, and that was my first sales engineering role, and really enjoyed that. And since then, I've kind of gone back and forth between professional services, consulting, and pre-sales. So I see that as a continuum, really, of a customer life cycle. And I've had the opportunity to, well, I was originally in Boston working for EMC, and I moved to India for 4 years to help set up the Asia Pacific consulting organization for EMC. So EMC was building this amazing advisory service with the help of Accenture. And we had built it in Asia and in North America and Europe, but not in Asia. And that's why I helped build that. Went and spent 3.5 years, building that across 7 countries, traveling from Australia to Japan. So that was really a fantastic experience. I moved back to Boston, and then I moved to Switzerland. And there I had the opportunity to lead Veritas' sales engineering team across 10 countries, from Amsterdam to Madrid, Rome, France, Switzerland, Germany. So really Western Europe, except for the UK and Nordics. And that was, again, a fantastic experience of, culturally, personally, but obviously professionally. So running that sales engineering team really helped me understand what the key challenges of our customers are, what we think of a product-focused mindset, really, of trying to solve a problem is not really what the customer wants. They want you to understand their business. And so as I grew into leadership roles more and more, that's kind of been one of the key learnings for me. And then when I wanted to come back to the US, Veritas offered me a role here in California. So we moved to California from Switzerland, and after that I joined Totango, which is the last place I was at, where I helped create this sales engineering team, and also led the services sales and defining the services and really driving that for a very fast growing small company, really.
Sales engineering, you led sales engineering to sell a customer success software.
Yes. Yes. So that's, that I think, as you said, those are the two. So it's really interesting, right? So when you think of customer success, it's really about services. It's about whether it's free or it's paid. It's about running services for your customers. The CSMs, the support, there's professional services, there's other organizations there. But really, it's about the post-sales journey for the customer. And a lot of what happens there is really in the pre-sales, right? So the ability to connect pre-sales and post-sales is one of the most powerful things that a lot of companies struggle with, because the value promised or the product features that the pre-sales team sold, right, and convinced the customer to buy the product, if you can't carry that through to the post-sales team, then there's a lot of value lost and rediscovery and frustration from the customer in that process. So I think that one of the key learnings, and in fact I remember at EMC we had this huge project of handoff. Really, how does pre-sales hand over to professional services at that time? There wasn't a CS concept yet, but the ability to make that handoff smoother, to have the information flow smoother across those two, before contract and after contract, is a critical process in most enterprises.
So actually, you set up the next question very nicely. Why there is a handoff between pre-sales and post-sales? Aren't they the same thing?
In theory, I would say yes. And having worked in both areas, I really think there's a lot in common in the two areas. The key difference, I think, is in pre-sales, there is sales involved, right? It is a matter of convincing the customer you have the right solution. It's a matter of demonstrating to the customer you have the right solution for their requirements. It's a matter of giving the customer the best product experience.
Let me kind of intervene in here.
Yeah.
And this is a great point made by one of my good friends, and who said, ultimately, whether you are in pre-sales or post-sales, there is one user who is looking at the product for the first time. And that is the time for them to realize value from the product. So essentially, it is about customer realizing the value from the product. It doesn't matter whether they realize the value before they purchase or post purchase. That artificial line is actually the sales getting the check from the customer. But from a user perspective, there are some users who will see the value before it is bought, and they are the decision makers. There are users who will see the value after the product is bought, but the experience for both of them is the same.
But there are a couple of key differences here. One, the buyer may not be the user. Okay, so you're talking to executives who are actually writing the check when selling the product. So in the pre-sales process, they want to hear a different message. They want to hear the value, the benefits. Yes, they want to see the product work, and you want to give them the best product experience. But many times, especially in larger enterprises, the buyer and the user are very different. So if you have to sell the buyer in the pre-sales process, selling of the user really starts almost at the end of that pre-sales process, when the user actually starts using the product and starts using. Now with PLG and all that, a lot of this is blurring. So I will give you that, with the ability of customers.
I wanted to just come in there.
Okay, sure.
Sorry, I think I just wanted to engage in some back and forth on that.
Sure.
I think I understand the part where you're selling into buyers.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a trial of the product at all, whether you do PLG or enterprise trial, then I understand. But the value of the PLG, value of the trial essentially, is to give a taste of the value to some user who will provide their feedback to the buyer that it is solving the technical problem we have, or giving the technical value that we desire. So there is somebody who is a key decision maker or is an influencer to the decision maker.
Agree, totally. But it's still a promise. It's still a promise of value delivered. And there is some testing of the promise delivered, but it really, to deliver it at scale and to deliver it at, to all the users that are going to use it after you purchase it, it's a different ballgame. Having said that, especially in fields like security, right? The POC becomes a very large part of value proof, right? And so in the POC, you want to be able to show, again, in limited form, but you're still showing a lot of value to the customer by doing that proof of concept. So there is definitely that. And I think in today's world, where there's so much information available already before the buyer even talks to sales or pre-sales, right? So you've got that ability to come in with competitive information on your product. You have the ability to come in with understanding, the limitations of your product and so on, even before you call the first sales rep. So I think that this world is changing, and the role of the SE is changing, but there is still some magic in that pre-sales that a pre-sales person has to do that's very different from a post-sales role. So the ability to kind of give the best product experience to that buyer prospect, right? And you want to potentially not take use cases that are not a best fit for you. You want to find the use cases that are best fit for your product, out of the customer's use cases, and demonstrate those. You want to be able to do the other ones as well, but you want to pick the ones that best demonstrate your product's value.
Let's take on that point.
Yeah.
Isn't that same case that you want to do in the post-sales also? Because if you don't hook up the user to something they will use repeatedly, that's the same case for post-sales customer success also. I mean, otherwise, and we both have chatted about this, that a large amount of sales is now happening in the expand phase rather than the land phase. So yes, you have convinced, but most people will say, let's buy some of this, let's try it out in the product, and then we will say whether there is a growth of the usage happening in the organization. So you have the same challenge. In fact,
Absolutely.
won't you say that customer success is now getting responsible for more sales compared to the pre-sales?
Yes, yes. And if your net retention rate is 120, 130%, and you're getting you have a significant installed customer base already, then you're right. The post sales is actually selling more than your pre-sales. Now the challenge happens is most CSMs and people in post sales roles, services people, don't have that sales gene in them. Okay, so they don't have that ability to kind of talk to the customer about, hey, how about that other group there, maybe they would get value from this, and here's how we can kind of run a quick POC for those guys. So we landed up in many cases actually bringing SEs into that post sales role for large deals because the CSM really didn't have the skill set. So you have to understand what your CSM is going to do in their job and hire to that profile, right?
So let's get into slightly more deeper into one of the aspects of that what you did. You have experience as part of Totango selling customer success tools, both enterprise customers and both for mid-market. What is the difference between the two markets?
So I would say Totango in the last couple of years has done a great job of providing PLG and providing freemium ways of customers testing out, trying out the product. I think they were first in the CS space to do that and really change the game for mid-market customers. So I think if you have I think they were doing it free for 1 to 3 users forever, and then very well priced above that for the mid-market. So those users come in, look at Totango, kind of take a quick tour, within a few hours or days, they actually can connect up their data and get going, right? So the promise of PLG there is completely sales free, no engagement from a sales rep to buy the product, right? And we actually had cases like that. So we didn't have not even the majority, but we had a few cases where customers would come in, sign up for the freemium, try it out, connect their different Salesforce and product databases and so on, see that everything worked, and sign up to buy the product and put the credit card down and take it. So that process works well if you have a true frictionless product.
True PLG, and I understand that. But from a customer point of view, what they are looking as a mid-market customer, like they don't want to deal with sales, like you said, they want to just get tried out.
They want to try it out. They want help at specific places. So data integration was one big piece where they're like, I'm a business user, I don't have Salesforce admin, what do I do, right? Or I want to connect my product database, what do I do? And sometimes mapping your process to that, it's relatively easy, but sometimes people would get confused. So the ideal piece there is to let the customer try the product and understand the key friction points or intervention points where they need help. So when they've done X, Y, and Z, they're about to finish stage A, they're about to go to stage B, provide them this product guidance or invite them to a webinar where they will learn more about how to do health scoring and things like that. So that is critical that you kind of understand that customer journey through the PLG process and set up key intervention, or if they're not making progress, they're kind of churning within a particular stage, then to be able to identify that and provide them with help there. So I think that's the main focus is 50% of your customers will probably go through the way you expect with the right interventions. The other 50% might need some custom curating of the process.
And what about the enterprise customers?
So enterprise customers, my experience has been they have been different. It depends whether an enterprise is coming in. A small business unit within an enterprise coming in might act like a mid-market customer and come in and do it themselves, and you're like, wow, it's this big brand, but they actually bought with their credit cards. Where they're doing more strategic customer success projects and they're really looking for a tool that will scale and help them be more efficient across hundreds of CSMs, there is a very different process. They're expecting a more curated SE-led process where you're going to help them kind of understand their use cases, model some of that for them, and then give them a proof of concept or a way to actually test out the product. But they're expecting you to kind of help them build that prototype, if you will.
So let's go into the mechanics of some of those things. I think one of the things you talked about, whether you were talking about the mid-market or the enterprise, the data integration, how easy or tough is the issue of acquiring data into any of such products?
It's not easy. So most customers have multiple CRMs even, multiple CRMs, yes. So you've got each business, together the company with 3 different business units. Actually, we've got a customer we had a customer that had HubSpot in one place and Salesforce in another, and the third group had a homegrown CRM. So, but ideally, typically you'd have multiple Salesforce instances even. Okay, so you have to connect multiple Salesforce instances with multiple customers, business units. So the data integration is clearly the most difficult piece of doing this. Product databases, connecting them, relatively easier, but still work to be done. And one of the things we talked about was being able to get, at Totango, was getting customers up and running in 5 days. Okay, so that was the goal, and we were working towards it, but it often took us up to 30 days to get the customer up and running. Not just the database, but their first, what we call successful first process implemented in Totango.
Got it. So let's talk about, I think, and I will continue this conversation between pre-sales and customer success in a different manner, but you were doing pre-sales, and I love that, using that phraseology. You were doing pre-sales to customer success customers. Right? But some of these customer success customers would have wanted to extend the usage of those tools to pre-sales.
Yes. So we actually had a couple of use cases there, which were really interesting because it didn't come out as a pre-sales use case first, right? It comes out as a customer success use case first. But once you've actually done all the system connections, you've got Salesforce and product data coming in, ticketing, NPS, all that stuff coming into Totango, then adding a pre-sales POC sales motion as one of the processes within Totango was actually much easier. Now the challenge you have is that the pre-sales teams want their own tool. Okay, Salesforce doesn't, or the CRM systems don't really provide that tool. They want their own workspace, right? So they want to be able to control what data they get in there, different from what the production CSMs are seeing. So you do need a different.
Why do they need a different system?
They don't. It's a matter of perception and control from the sales side versus the product side.
No, I was talking about why do the pre-sales can't use the CRM system as they exist for their job?
Oh, the CRM system doesn't give you the ability to you can bring in product usage data, you can bring in ticketing data and all that into Salesforce, but it's not easy. In theory, you can do a whole lifecycle management system in Salesforce. I think CRM is a grand name for a sales opportunity management tool. That's what Salesforce basically does. A lot of the lifecycle management up to an opportunity becoming a contract, right? To the customer signs.
But beyond that adjacent space, it doesn't do very well.
It doesn't do very well. You can't. Lots of customers have tried using it and then ultimately.
So what does a pre-sales tool should offer to a customer?
A pre-sales tool should offer to a customer, obviously, the ability to quickly run a POC. Okay, so give the customer some product experience easily, okay, and be able to kind of manage that process. So part of managing that process is collaboration with the customer, communications, having different stages, your funnel, right? The ability to easily understand where the customer is in which stage, and automate some of the communications to the customer, saying, hey, you just moved from stage A to stage B, here's some product guidance and a video that will help you use the product better. So the ability to kind of digitize or automate some of those processes to help their job easier, because right now most POCs are run in a very manual process, okay, and it takes a lot of SE effort. And one of the biggest challenges we had was, should we POC or not POC? So we decided below a certain dollar value, we're not going to POC. We're going to let the customer say, all right, you want to use the customer, go use the product on our freemium thing. If you need help, call us, but otherwise we're not going to do a full, curated POC.
So you wanted to have some qualification, you didn't want to, but the qualification is done by usually salesperson, it's not.
Yeah, it's done by sales with input from us, based on the use case, the size, the brand that we're going to get into. So it's a joint effort there, but really doing a POC is a lot of SE work right now. So if you can help automate that process, if you can help make it easier for them to kind of track. And a lot of what we did for one of our customers that we actually put the pre-sales process in was actually put in dashboard reporting for SE management and the vice president of solution engineering, sales engineering. So the ability for him to see, I'm running 50 POCs, 4 of them are in this stage, 10 of them are in this stage, these are the ones, and based on my probability, these are the ones that are going to close this quarter because they're already in stage 3. The ability to see that easily and report on that back to the ultimately to the funnel, to the forecast, was a key part of why they wanted to put this in.
So let's take one of the aspects of a pre-sales or customer success solution. One of the frequent complaints that I've heard about a lot of current tools in the market is that they try to assume that the customer success of the pre-sales process is largely between a user and the engineer, rather than the user and the product. So what they start to do is to automate the job of a human rather than automating the interaction through the product itself. For example, sometimes let's say a product crash happens or an issue happens. The crash happens in the product systems are today very smart enough to detect something unusual has happened. They will be able to inform internally, but somehow we don't inform externally that easily. We will actually inform the engineer support who will actually write an email. And sometimes you realize that you are actually trying to tell an engineer to write an email to the customer, and then you're saying, why are you doing that? Why can't you just have a conversation directly with the customer? Let product automatically have a conversation with the users rather than a human being required.
I agree totally. So what you have to map is the customer journey through your product, in the pre-sales, in the post-sales, and automate as much of that as you can, right? So that's what we want to do. Now the problem is the customer has been dealing with the sales engineer, and when it crashes, he's probably going to call the sales engineer, or he's going to write an email to the sales engineer. So you need to kind of set up your process correctly, where the customer is interacting with the product the way you expect them to, and then that he will expect an email from support if this thing happens, and so on. So it's all a matter of expectation setting and then having the right process.
So you're saying that automating the product is important, more important than automating the task of a human?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I think, and then doing it the right way with the customer journey, looking at it from the customer's point of view, right? So it's not automating the product or the human, it's actually automating the customer journey.
Exactly. So let's talk about the modern trend where, like 10 years back, I mean, you have been in sales for a long time, and in the revenue system for a long time. And you have seen, and I think you will agree with me, that 10 or 15 years back, most of the deals were large when they entered through the gate. And there was a support team whose job was to keep the customer happy, but the sales guy had sold the license for 2-3 years and they were happy. They were going into the president's club.
Absolutely.
And now,
done that.
and now most of the sales guys are selling a subscription, a smaller, and getting into the system. And much of the sales is being done in the post-sales process. The question I'm asking is, does it change the nature of the people who are in post-sales? And the reason I'm saying this is, a lot of have been told, and a lot of customer success people who enter the customer success, and many of them were support people, who came with the mentality that I have to make the customer happy and become a trusted advisor rather than sell anything. And now they are expected to introduce this product, that product, because they are the closest. And many of them fill with cringe because they are being asked to sell. And sell is kind of a bad word for a trusted advisor, that you are abusing my trust to kind of bring in sales here, and you can understand why that is the case. What is your take on this? How do you see this system evolving?
So there's no right and easy answer there, right? So this is an evolution of the industry, really, right? So the whole land, adopt, expand, the TSIA model really talks about the sales rep you need today is not the guy who goes and plays golf with the CIO and sells a $5 million deal, although if he does that, that's great. But you need somebody who can kind of do much more business development is reasonably technical enough to at least understand and map some of the pieces and then bring in the SE at the right time and so on. So the role of a sales rep is changing. The role of account management is being subsumed into the CSM. Now we may be asking, as you said, our CSMs to do too much. You want them to become the trusted advisor, you want them to be a product expert, you want them to understand the customer's business, and you want them to sell the expansion. So, but ultimately that's where I see it going. So until CS, in my view, until CS has some revenue responsibility, net revenue retention is actually a key metric that they're measured on and that they have to deliver on. Now you can have account management and CS working hand in hand where the opportunity is found by the CSM and passed on to a account manager saying, hey, you go sell this. And you might, in larger companies that works. But in smaller companies where the CSM is really becomes much more of a consultant, an advisor, and a sales rep. And that's a tall task. As you said, a lot of CSMs come in thinking their job is to make the customer happy, be a trusted advisor, be the product expert, and then, that's it, once the customer's adopted. But a lot of CSMs still focus on the wrong things, right? They are still focused on my product and how you're going to use it. They're still focused on one or two users as opposed to the customer organization. So there's a lot of different things that CSMs have to learn if they're going to be truly even trusted advisors, but even more than that, being able to convince the customer to buy the expansion. So it's a journey many organizations are going on. Now, obviously, many organizations are struggling with the cost, right? I have sales, now I have to have CSMs, I have to pay for both these organizations to make a sale, and I've just doubled my costs. So it's not an easy way. The maturity of your product, the maturity of your market, the maturity of your organizations all play into how you align those two things.
Got it. I have the last question here, and that's something which I am very selfish and I always ask everybody. The product manager, that has been what I've been by training. I am creating a product and people and ilk of mine are creating products. Shouldn't they be responsible to create products that are they have easier go-to-market, they're the product that can be sold easily, product can be deployed easily. I mean, I come from security. As a security companies, 10 years back, we took a perverse pleasure in creating complex product because unless there was a PS suite SKU sold alongside the product, we never felt happy. So the argument here is should product manager incentivized from a revenue perspective that if the go-to-market is easier, you will also get some kind of a revenue cut out of that.
Absolutely.
Why do you say that?
I say that because, in the ideal product, it should be easy to install, it should be easy to manage, it should be easy to use. I mean, those should be the primary considerations when you design the product. So from my point of view, frictionless ideal product, you don't even need CS, you don't even need support, you don't need pre-sales. That's ideal.
That's
ideal.
When you don't want to take everybody off the job.
No, but if you're saying that the product manager really designs the product for the use cases and the customer base that they're targeting, right? Then they should be thinking of at least ease of installation, ease of management, and ease of use. Those three have to be much more important than adding yet another feature that one customer wants. So I think that incenting product management to think much more about go-to-market and align with go-to-market. And right now, in many organizations, there's a tension between product management and the go-to-market team, right? There's always that getting that balance right again is something
that's not going to go anywhere.
It's not going to go anywhere,
It's
but
not going to go
at least getting more of the customer feedback and this go-to-market team feedback on, hey, if you just did these three things, I would be spending a lot less time managing this product, right?
Yeah, got it. Thank you, Sumant, for joining this episode of Funnel Story Podcast.
Thank you.
Awesome.